and welcome to another lawnfawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our brand new die treehouse. This treehouse is so adorable, so let's go ahead and check it out. Here is a look at all of the dies from the set, and as you can see, there's a lot of awesome pieces that you can layer to create a really cool treehouse. We of course have the treehouse, and then we have some little detail pieces for the door and for the window. We also have a little doorknob. We have different pieces of the treetop, so we have a larger one and smaller ones that you can layer for the top of the tree. And then we have some really cute little greenery and flowers, a birdhouse, an adorable little mushroom, some grass pieces, and then some flowers that are really great for layering over that kind of little bud piece that we have at the top. Now we'll start to layer these pieces together, and you can see that you don't have to add the door frame and the window frame, but when you do, it looks so adorable. There's something about those little layered pieces on top. We're also going to add a little doorknob as well. Here's a look at how the tulips are added to those awesome little leaves, and it looks adorable. And then we also have a cute little birdhouse, and there's that little piece that you can layer right behind it to fill in the center of the birdhouse. We'll add some tape runner to the top of the treehouse, and then you can add the leaves up top. There's the larger one and the smaller one, and you can layer those to create a really cool treehouse. I really love the look of having some of the branches sticking out and some of the branches tucked behind. And then here is the other style of flower. You can add the little yellow center behind the flower and then layer them onto those leaves. And then you can layer the little top of the mushroom on top. Now this door has a little fold line, a little score line that the die creates for you so that you can bend it and open it and tuck little characters inside. And then here you can see how cute the treehouse looks with the layered flowers and grasses. The little birdhouse in the treehouse is one of my favorites, and that little mushroom is just so sweet. First up, we're going to create a card that features the treehouse front and center, and later we're going to show you how to incorporate the treehouse into scenes with critters or other characters. So we're going to start off with this stitched cloudy backdrop, and we're going to die cut that from some spiffy speckles paper. And I love this backdrop because it's just that little stitch detail is subtle and so pretty. Then for the ground, we're also going to take out some more spiffy speckles paper, and we're going to be die cutting that with a simple Grassy hillside die. One of my favorite ways to die cut this treehouse is to die cut it from woodgrain cardstock because it already has that beautiful, beautiful detail on it, and it really makes the treehouse look realistic. For the treetops, we're going to be die cutting some really rainbow paper. I think it's so fun to cut the treetops out of pattern paper. The green from this collection is really, really perfect. I also love the idea of die cutting it from the flower market paper because it would have all those little flowers in it. Next, we're going to ink the edges of the die cuts, and sometimes I forget to do this, and every time I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, that just makes everything look so amazing. And when you start with pattern paper or colored cardstock, a lot of the color is already there for you, so it's really quick and easy to do. So here we're taking some Cilantro cardstock, we're inking the grass and all of the treetops, and just going ahead and inking around the top of the treetops and at the top of the grass. And you'll see that it just gives this really, really beautiful detail, making them almost look three-dimensional. We're also going to add some inking to the treehouse, and we're going to use some dough ink on this woodgrain cardstock. And what I love about this is not only does it give it kind of a cool tree wood look, but it also makes the woodgrain texture really pop in that paper, and it looks so gorgeous. So now we're going to take the grass and layer it at the bottom of our beautiful sky. And then we can just trim off any of the excess of that grass. And then we're going to start adding some fun details to the treehouse. So we're going to create a different colored door for the treehouse, and we're going to do that by die cutting some spiffy speckles paper, that same beautiful blue we used for the sky, and we're just going to bend the door right at that fold line and just trim the door right off. And so you could do this with any color of pattern paper, and it's a really fun way to make the door look really special. So we'll just layer that piece right on top. And then we'll take out the 6x6 pad for Into the Woods, which has this really great wood grain, and we're going to die cut the door frame and the window frame from that and layer that right on top. And you'll see it just looks so pretty. I love the mix of the cardstock with the pattern paper. And then just a little drop of glue and the doorknob for the door. To add a little backing to the door and the window, we're going to take some vanilla malt cardstock, and you can just trim this with your scissors. It doesn't need to look perfect because no one's ever going to see it. And we're just going to add some tape runner around the door and around the window, and then just layer those pieces behind. And now that's going to fill in the windows. And I usually use yellow when I do this, but I really loved how Rebecca used vanilla malt because it just gives a little bit of a glow, but not too much of a glow. And right now we are recreating a gorgeous card by Elise, so thank you so much for this stunning card. So now we're going to add our awesome treehouse to the bottom of our grass, and then we're going to start building up the tops of the trees. And in this case, at the beginning, we just use one large one and two small ones. Here we're showing how you can layer lots and lots of these kind of fluffy tree tops to create a really tall treehouse. And I think this looks really neat too. Another thing that I think looks really nice is having some of the tree branches sticking out and some of them tucked behind. We're also going to add some more fluffy tree tops, layering them behind, kind of putting them at different angles, so it really looks like this is a huge old tree with all these awesome, beautiful leaves on it. Next up, we're going to use the flowers in this set in kind of a unique way, and it was so pretty how Elise did that. So we're going to die cut them out of ballet slippers cardstock, and then out of that same spiffy speckles green that we used for the grass. Then to color in the buds and add a little detail to them, we're just using a pink marker that's a little bit darker than that ballet slippers cardstock, and you'll see that that just looks really, really pretty. Then to add some more dimension, we're actually just going to trim off the leaves at the bottom there, and we're going to layer those over top, and it's going to look absolutely gorgeous. So there's lots of fun and cool ways that you can get different looks out of these dies just by layering different die cuts cut out of different papers. Now we can start adding the flowers into the scene, and we're also going to die cut a bunch of the little grass pieces that are included in the set out of some cilantro cardstock to just kind of fill in and create the scene, and that helps kind of integrate this die cut into the grass below, and it almost makes it feel three-dimensional. Next, we're going to take some hearts from the Hearts and Stars skinny tag die, and I love this die because it has hearts and stars in a lot of different sizes that are perfect for adding as little confetti into the scene. And so we're going to add little drops of liquid glue using the glue tube, and then we can just layer those cute little hearts on top to help fill in the scene. We're going to take out an oldie but a goodie, which is the Bunting Border dies. And this little border is so sweet, and it's really perfect for this treehouse. So we're going to take out the curved one and die cut it from some white cardstock. Then the die has all these little pennant flags that you can die cut then out of pattern paper or different things to create your own cute little banner. So we're going to die cut it out of the pink, blue, and yellow, and we're going to create a fun little pattern. And there's something about those little flags cut out of that all the dots paper that looks so pretty. So then we can just add some liquid glue on the back, and then we're just going to layer each of these, and we're going to do pink, yellow, blue to create the really fun pattern. Then we'll just cut off the excess, and then we can layer it onto the tree, and you'll see that it just makes this little tree house so inviting and so cute. For the sentiment, we're going to be doing some white heat embossing on black cardstock. And so we're going to prep it with an anti-static powder tool, and we're going to be stamping in some clear embossing ink a sentiment that comes from our Happy Village stamp set, and it says, "Home is where the heart is." We'll sprinkle on some white heat embossing powder, top off any of the excess, and then we can heat it up with a heat tool. Then next, what we're going to do is use our paper trimmer to trim along the edges of this, and we're also going to cut in between the sentiments so that we can stack the two layers. To give the sentiment a nice pop, we're going to add some foam strips onto the back, and then we can layer it into the top of the tree. And this is such a cute card, it would make a perfect housewarming card. Now the last step for this card is to add a card base. This is a standard size card base at 5.5 by 4.25. We'll add some tape runner to that and then layer the card front on top, and our card is all done. And oh my goodness, Elise, I just love this design so much. It is so sweet. Now we just created a card where the treehouse is front and center, and now we're going to use the treehouse and have it more be in the background for a cute critter scene. And so to do that, we're going to do something kind of fun and do some cool stenciling. We're going to create a little trail that's going up to the treehouse, and that's going to make it feel like the treehouse is kind of far away. So we're using a stitched hillside stencil here, and we're just going to kind of layer the treehouse there, layer the stencil. This is Rebecca creating the card right now. You can see she's kind of playing around with what the angle is going to be. Then she's taking some distress oxide ink, and she's just going to ink right on the edge of the stencil, just really, really lightly. Then we're going to take the other side of the stencil and kind of finish up the path. So you'll see how we're kind of connecting the two sides of this. Then we can ink up our brush again and then just ink up a little bit. So we're inking onto the stencil and then right onto the grass really lightly because I want it to look like one of those dirt paths that's been kind of like stomped through the grass, right? So there's a little bit of green showing through that brown, and the distress oxide really gives a cool look with that. And how fun is that with the trail going up to the treehouse? Now next up, we need to create a cute cloudy sky. So we're going to be using some kiddie pool ink and our cloudy stencil. And I love this stencil so much. We're going to be starting on the stencil and then kind of working our way up onto the cardstock. This stencil has 4 different sides with 4 different styles of clouds. And what makes it look really realistic is to ink one and then move the other one down and kind of choose a different cloud and keep varying them so that you have the natural variance of what clouds look like in the sky. Oh my gosh, it is already looking so pretty. So now we have an inked sky and we have a really cool ink trail. So we are going to be doing some inking onto our die cut. So we're going to cut that treehouse again from that wood grain cardstock because it just looks amazing. And then we're going to use some dough ink to ink the edges. And this ink is the perfect color to ink this light wood grain cardstock. It's just so pretty. So you can see already how the treehouse just comes to life with just a little bit of ink. It's something you can do really, really easily and quickly. Now we're also going to be die cutting some of the treetops out of cilantro cardstock and we're going to ink those as well. And we're going to ink that with some clover ink. Something about the look of the clover ink on cilantro cardstock that I find just to be so magical. It's such a pretty, pretty mix. Now we're also going to be die cutting the window frame and the door frame out of that same wood grain cardstock, and we're going to ink these as well so that they're nicely incorporated into the treehouse that we've already inked. And so we're going to use that same dough ink. Now it's time to start layering all of our pieces. So we're going to add some liquid glue to the door and add the doorknob, and then we're going to add our window frame and the door frame. So as you see, as you layer those on, the whole thing just starts to come to life. It's so pretty. We're going to work on layering our treetops, and to get some nice dimension, we're going to add some tape runner to the back of those tree branches, and we're going to add the smaller ones on the back so that you can see the tree branches peeking out. Then for the larger treetop, we're going to add some tape runner to the front, and then we'll layer that there. And so now you just get some nice dimension where it looks like some of the branches are behind it. It's a really nice big tree. Now, for the back of the windows for this one, we're going to use some sticky note cardstock. So it looks a little bit more like a brighter glow than we did in the other tree where we used vanilla malt cardstock. And you can see just how pretty that looks. Now we're going to add our really pretty stencil sky onto a standard size card base that's 5.5 by 4.25. Then we can take the grass that we did with that awesome little trail, which is one of my favorite things. I think I'm going to add a trail to every single treehouse card that I make from now on because it looks so pretty. And then we can layer that treehouse right on top, and that trail really makes the treehouse feel like it's far off in the distance. Now we're going to take out the tea-rrific Day and tea-rrific Day add-on stamp sets. We went ahead and stamped, colored, and die cut a bunch of the images. And this tea-rrific Day woodland tea party scene is perfect for the treehouse. So we're going to add some tape runner to the back of that tree stump, and then we're going to layer our cute little squirrel behind, and he's kind of sitting behind the table enjoying the tea party. Then we can add some foam squares onto that so that that really helps the tea party feel like it's in the foreground and the tree house is in the background. So we're going to layer the tree stump in, and then we can start to add the other little characters around. And this little hedgehog with the hat, I mean, he's my favorite. He's just so cute. Then we're going to add the bunny. The bunny comes from the add-on set, and he's so cute around this tree stump. And then we'll start filling in the rest of our scene. So we're going to add this little mushroom around the treehouse, and that's going to help incorporate the die cut into our stamped images. It kind of brings the two things together. And then we can start to create the tea party. We have the really sweet little acorn teapot, and of course a little teacup. We've got our little tiered tray of macarons or little tea sandwiches we can layer into the scene as well. And then this set has this cute little butterfly and a trail that's perfect for above to kind of help fill in the sky, and I just think it just kind of adds to the whimsical nature of the scene. Next, we're going to stamp out one of my favorite sentiments from that tea-rrific Day stamp set, and it's sending you positivity. And we're going to stamp that out in some bright pink bubblegum ink, and then take out a sentiment banner die, and we're going to line that up with the left side of the sentiment, and then run it through the die cut machine. And it's okay that there's a little extra on the side. We're going to end up trimming that off in just a little bit. So now we're going to add this onto the card, and what I like about this is it's going to layer over part of the tree, once again kind of incorporating the tree into our cute stamp scene. Now our sentiment banner and tree tops were hanging off the edge of the card, and I actually really love when this happens. So we're going to trim off right along the edge of the card, and by trimming that off, it kind of makes it feel like maybe the treetop kind of goes on further. It helps extend the scene in your mind, and I think it looks so pretty. So I love the look of those treetops cut off on the edges. Now at this point, Rebecca was creating the card, and she thought the sky just wasn't bright enough, but she didn't want to redo the whole card, so this was a nice fix. We're going to take out some of that same kiddie pool ink, and we're just going to ink the very edges of the card. And you can see as she did that, it really brightened up the sky and helped. If you want a brighter sky, merman ink is my favorite for doing clouds. It looks really great. And if you want a softer sky like this, the kiddie pool ink is perfect. And if a sky is ever too soft, you can always go in on the edges when your card is done and just add a little bit of ink. Next up, Shari is incorporating some adorable gnomes into this treehouse, and the card is gorgeous. So take it away, Shari.
I'm making a treehouse card today, and I'm pairing that treehouse with the gnomes from Oh Gnome. I've already colored and cut them out with the coordinating dies along with the 3 mushrooms in that stamp set. And I'm going to start out by doing the background for my little scene with my treehouse. I am going to be creating a very large square card, so I'm using Watercolor Wishes for my sky. I'm going to be using that lighter teal color there, and then I'm going to be using some of this green paper with the little tiny flowers from Flower Market for my grass. As I said, this is a large square card. It's 5.5 by 5.5. So I've already cut that sky piece down to 5.5 by 5.5. And then for the green one, I'm cutting it to 5.5 inches wide. And then I'll just cut the top part with my grassy hillside. So I'll just hold this in place with some washi tape and run it through my die cut machine, and that will give me that really fun grass with the little flowers inside. Now I did want to kind of define the edges a little bit more, so I'm going in with some Moonstone ink, which is a light blue, and I'm just inking up the edges of this Watercolor Wishes sky. You can see how it kind of defines the edges a bit more. And I'm just being very light-handed with this. I don't want too much ink. I just want those edges inked up. And I'm putting my grass on there so I can see how far down I need to go. I'm also going to do the same thing with the grass and ink up the top grass blades. This will just define it a little more against that sky. And I'm just using some celery stick ink for this. You can see how much more that is defined against the sky color. Now for my other die cuts, I am going to do some inking on them as well. So for the main body of the tree, I cut this from some kraft cardstock. And I'm using some tea dye distressing to darken it up a little bit, make it not look so solid one color. And you can see how this brings out those stitching lines a little bit more because the ink gets caught in there. So it really brings out the details just a little bit more. I'll just add a little bit more ink around that door. And then I'm adding a piece of narwhal cardstock. I cut it with that same die, but just cut the door itself out so I could layer it on top so my door could be a different color. And then the door frame, I just cut from some white. I did the same for the window frame. It's also just cut from white. And then I have a piece of storm cloud cardstock, just a scrap, and I've just trimmed it down so it fits behind the window and the door. So now that window is dark, and when you open the door, it's solid behind it. Now I have all my tree pieces. So there's a large puffy piece and a small puffy piece. I've cut all these from Cilantro cardstock, and I'm just adding a little bit of Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink to one edge. I am adding it with the foam tool, but then I'm going in with a brush just to kind of smooth that edge out a little bit. Now these are all going to overlap each other, so I'm not really sure which colors I'm going to see in certain places, but this is going to give it a variety of color and make it not look so flat. So I've inked up all the large ones. I'm going to do the same for the small ones, and I'm just using my brush for the small ones so I don't get too much ink on there. And I'm trying to ink up different sides of those small ones so that I can turn them this way and that way, and they're not all exactly the same. Now for some texture, I'm adding some white watercolor paint, and then I will also add the dark green watercolor that's in this set that I use. For the dark green, I'm going to flick it off the side of a block so that my splatters of paint are much, much smaller than the white ones. So I'm just adding that to my block, and I'll just flick it off the side with my paintbrush, and you can see you get those really fine dark green splatters. So now that those tree pieces are dry, I'm just going to build the rest of my tree. So I'm layering 2 of the large ones at the bottom to create the main and large part of the canopy. And I'm just gluing those directly to the branches that reach up from the tree base. I'm trying to make it look nice and even so that I have about the same overhang of the canopy on each side. And then I'm adding that last large piece to the top, and I'm going to pop it up on some thin foam squares so that not only do we have these layers, but we also have a little bit of dimension between the layers. And you can see that that light green peeks out from underneath that top piece that I just added. Now for the small ones, I'm going to use those to kind of break up my seams between my large pieces and make them not all look so symmetrical and the same. So I've put this one right in the front using some thin foam squares and thick foam squares to pop it up even more than that top large piece that I added. And then I'll do the same for this one. The shape of these pieces makes me think of popcorn, actually. I think that would be fun to make some kind of card with popcorn with these. And then this one I'm actually going to tuck behind. So now we have our tree canopy all put together, and you can see what that's going to look like on this very large card. So I'm adding my Watercolor Wishes Sky to a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square card. And then I can just add my grass along the bottom. And then I laid out where I wanted my pieces to go, and I really do like the look of this, except there wasn't really room for a sentiment the way I wanted it to be. You could put it in a banner across the tree, or you could have it in a speech bubble from the gnomes, but I just wanted a sentiment right across the bottom. So I decided I was going to push everything up a little bit and just end up trimming off the top of the tree so it kind of goes off the canvas and out of the scene. So I'm just lining up the stamps for the sentiment in my MISTI, and I'm actually going to do a test stamp before I stamp it directly on my card, just to make sure it looks good and everything's nice and straight. So I've got a piece of scrap white cardstock that I'll just stamp on. Everything looks great, so I'm just going to go ahead and ink that up again and stamp it right along the bottom of my card. And now I can start to assemble all those images and that treehouse onto my card base. So I have those cute little mushrooms. I've already added that gnome that's peeking out from behind the door of the treehouse. And then for the treehouse, I've just added some foam squares to the top where I've popped those pieces up, and then liquid glue all over the bottom. And I'll just center him up, make sure it's nice and stuck down, and then I can trim off the very top part of the canopy that's going off the top of my card. I've also got the other mushrooms in this set so that I have a mushroom for a gnome to sit on, because I think that is so much fun. And then this mushroom that I've colored orange, I'm tucking these smaller ones behind the grass. Since I didn't glue the very top of the grass down, I can do that pretty easily. And for this wide mushroom that the gnome is going to sit on, I'm going to pop it up with some foam squares. And I just like the look of this mushroom overlapping the base of the treehouse. I think that's really fun. And then I'm just going to add the little guy that's sitting on top of that mushroom. And then for my little girl gnome, I'm adding some thin foam squares to her too. So she's popped up a little bit, but not as much as the mushroom gnome. And then I realized here that I didn't have a doorknob. So I cut out the little doorknob from some sunflower cardstock, so we have a little yellow doorknob, and I'll just add that to the door. And then finally, nothing is complete without some clouds in the sky, so I have the really small stitch cloud from spring showers. I have a bunch of these that I just kind of keep on hand, and I'm tucking this one behind the tree. And then these other two, which are going to overhang the edge, I'll just trim those off. So I really do have a nice full scene that goes off all the sides of my card pretty much. And then finally, some glitter. I used some stickles to glitter up the dots on the mushrooms, or the spots on the mushrooms, I should say, the doorknob, and then I also traced the very tops of the clouds. And here's my finished card. I love those cute little gnomes with this treehouse die. They look like the cute little elves. They should be baking cookies. And I think that this die will be a lot of fun to pair with a lot of other stamps.
I love this card so much, Shari. It is so sweet, and those little gnomes are a perfect match for the treehouse. And next up, we have some incredible cards by the design team, and Tammy shows us that our fairy friend set is also a perfect match for this treehouse. Those little fairies around the treehouse just make me smile. I love how Callie put the treehouse front and center, and those little red tulips in the background with the red mushrooms up front look so beautiful. Oh my gosh, Audrey blew me away. She created a Winnie the Pooh scene with this treehouse, and it might just be the sweetest thing ever. Next up, we have a really cute card by Kara, and she used our dad joke stamp set to create a cute interactive card. So it says, "What is brown and sticky?" And as you open the door for the treehouse, you have the punchline, "A stick." It's so funny and so cute. Next up, Mindy blew me away by creating a really fun interactive card. And when you press the Press Me, you get an awesome light up effect using Chibitronics to create this really cute lit up window scene. Next up, we have the beautiful card by Elise that inspired us to make ours today. You can see she used different pattern papers on the banners and on the treetops, and it looks so pretty. And then this card by Lynette is so sweet. I love that little hello border that she has at the bottom. So we cannot wait to see what you guys create with the treehouse die, so make sure to share it with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!